Elias Kendrick squinted at the horizon as lightning fractured the purple sky. The atmospheric readings on his wrist scanner were deteriorating by the minute. Another hour, and the storm would make this survey impossible. He adjusted his breathing apparatus and continued cataloging the alien flora, his fingers deftly tapping the specimen collection data into his handheld unit. 6 weeks on Terravis IV, and the planet still managed to surprise him daily. Corporate wanted thorough biometric analysis before establishing any permanent settlements, which meant long, solitary excursions into increasingly remote regions. Today's mission had taken him deep into the violet forests that dominated the northern continent. Specimen A437 contains elevated levels of phosphorescent compounds, he muttered into his recorder. Potential application in sustainable lighting technologies, further analysis required. A sound broke his concentration, high-pitched and desperate, cutting through the humid air like a blade. Elias froze, his hand instinctively moving to the pulse pistol at his hip. Help, human, help. The voice was small, strained, speaking standard with a strange musical cadence. Elias spun around, scanner raised to detect approaching life forms. Through the dense undergrowth emerged a small figure, no higher than his chest, skin the color of pale jade with intricate markings across the temples. Large, golden eyes blinked rapidly in terror. A child, an alien child. Please, the small being gasped, four-fingered hands trembling. My mother trapped, hunters coming back soon. Elias hesitated only briefly. The Terravis IV intelligence reports mentioned indigenous sentient species, but contact had been minimal and cautious. Company protocol dictated non-interference. But the child's fear was universal. Where is she? Elias asked, lowering his weapon. The young alien made a keening sound of relief and grabbed Elias' gloved hand, pulling with surprising strength. This way, hurry. They pushed through dense vegetation, ducking under massive violet fronds and skirting luminous fungi clusters. Lightning flashed closer now, illuminating their path in stark bursts. The child moved with nimble grace despite his obvious distress, occasionally looking back to ensure Elias followed. What's your name? Elias called over a crack of thunder. Kiv, the child answered without slowing. Mother is Thara. I'm Elias, what kind of traps? His question died as they broke into a small clearing. In the center lay a female of Kiv's species, considerably larger, her lavender skin unnaturally pale. A cruel mechanism of metal cable and barbs had ensnared her right leg, cutting deep into the flesh. Silver blue blood pooled beneath her. When she saw Elias, she hissed weakly, revealing sharp incisors. Her elongated fingers curled protectively around a smooth stone hanging from her neck. Stay away from my child, she warned, her voice barely audible. Elias slowly raised his empty hands. I'm here to help, Kiv brought me. She looked at her son, then back to Elias, her golden eyes narrowing with pain and suspicion. Thunder boomed overhead and she flinched. The storm comes, she whispered, and then the hunters, if you help, help now. Kiv rushed to his mother's side, speaking rapid words in their native tongue. Elias approached cautiously, kneeling beside the trap. It was no primitive snare, its design was advanced, with alloy components not native to this world. And the logo etched into the release mechanism was disturbingly familiar. This is human-made, he said grimly, opening his utility pack, but not sanctioned by my company. Poachers Thara manage through gritted teeth, they hunt us for parts. Elias felt a wave of disgust. Black market operators had reached Terravis IV ahead of official colonization. It happened on every promising new world despite regulations. I need to release the tension first, he explained, selecting a tool. It will hurt when the blood flow returns. She nodded once, gripping the stone pendant tighter. Kiv placed his small hand on his mother's shoulder. Working quickly, Elias disarmed the trap's locking mechanism and carefully unwound the metal cable. Thara made no sound throughout the procedure, though her face contorted in silent agony. When the last coil fell away, she gasped, her body shuddering. A low, mechanical hum vibrated through the clearing, distant but approaching. Hover vehicle, Thara whispered, panic flaring in her eyes. They come. Without hesitation, Elias lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, her body radiating unusual heat. My research outpost is 3 kilometers east, he told Kiv. Can you keep up? The boy nodded solemnly. Then run, Elias commanded as the first fat drops of rain began to fall. And don't look back. As they fled through the darkening forest, Thara's fingers gripped Elias' jacket, her face pressed against his chest. He felt her silent tears through the fabric and ran faster, heart pounding with an unfamiliar protective instinct. Company protocol be damned, some lines of decency stretched across the stars. The research outpost emerged from the downpour like a metallic beacon, a prefabricated hexagonal structure perched on stilts above the forest floor. Elias punched his access code into the exterior panel one-handed, Thara's weight still cradled against his chest. The door hissed open as another thunderclap shook the canopy above. "Inside quickly," he urged Kiv, who darted through the entrance. The interior lights activated automatically, revealing the sparse functionality of Elias' temporary home, monitoring equipment, specimen storage, and a small living area. Elias carefully laid Thara on his cot while Kiv hovered anxiously nearby, golden eyes wide as he took in the unfamiliar human technology. "Your mother needs medical attention," Elias said, retrieving the emergency medkit from its wall mount. "I'm not a doctor, but I've had field training." Thara's breathing had grown shallow, her lavender skin taking on a grayish undertone. The wound where the trap had bitten into her leg continued to seep silver-blue fluid. "Can I trust you?" she asked weakly, her gaze intense despite her condition. Elias paused, antiseptic spray in hand. "I understand your caution, but yes, I'm not with the hunters. I survey ecosystems for potential settlement areas." "More humans," she murmured. "Regulated settlement," he corrected. "What those hunters are doing is illegal under interstellar coalition law." Kiv moved closer to his mother. "He saved you, Mama, his heart light is clean." Thara studied Elias for a long moment before nodding. "Proceed." Working methodically, Elias cleaned and treated the wound, discovering with relief that while deep, the damage had missed major blood vessels. Thara's anatomy differed from human physiology in fascinating ways, her skeletal structure more flexible, her skin slightly translucent when touched by light. "Your people healed differently than mine," Elias observed, applying a regenerative gel to the laceration. "Faster usually," she replied, watching his hands work. "But the trap, it had something that burns, makes healing slow." "Chemical anticoagulant," Elias growled. "They wanted their prey weakened but alive." Kiv had settled cross-legged on the floor beside the cot. "They take people from our settlement, sometimes they come back, changed, sometimes never." Elias sealed the bandage and offered Thara water from his canteen. Outside, the storm unleashed its full fury, rain hammering against the outpost's protective shell. "Why are they hunting your people?" he asked. Thara's fingers again found the stone pendant at her neck. "This, our life crystals, they form within us as we mature," she hesitated. "Your kind calls them bioluminescent symbiotic compounds. To us they are sacred, to hunters they are valuable. And these crystals are harvested." Elias couldn't keep the horror from his voice. "Yes," she whispered, "fatal to us, but they power much in your markets, I'm told." Elias sat back, disgust churning in his stomach. Illicit bioharvesting was among the most severe crimes in colonized space, yet it persisted wherever profit could be made from suffering. As night fell, Elias prepared a simple meal from his supplies. Kiv approached the food with curious caution before hunger overcame wariness. Thara watched her son with tired fondness. "He has never met humans before," she explained. "None who didn't wish us harm." "And you?" Elias asked, passing her a portion. A faint smile curved her lips. "I was a scholar before our settlement was discovered, I studied other worlds." Their fingers brushed as she accepted the food, sending an unexpected warmth through Elias' arm. Something in her golden eyes, intelligence, resilience, and something indefinably gentle, held him transfixed. "You should rest," he finally said, breaking the moment. "Tomorrow we'll need to move. This outpost isn't secure enough if they're tracking you." Later, as Thara and Kiv slept, Elias studied his planetary charts, marking possible routes to the main research base where better protection could be found. His communications array detected no signals through the storm. They were isolated for now. He glanced at his sleeping guests. Company protocol had clear directives about indigenous contact, document but do not interfere. Yet something deeper than protocol stirred in him, a conviction that transcended corporate regulations. Thara stirred in her sleep, her face momentarily contorting in pain. Without thinking, Elias moved to her side, adjusting the cooling pack on her injury. Her eyes fluttered open, regarding him with drowsy confusion. "Your son called it a heart light," Elias said quietly. "What did he mean?" Her hand weakly reached for his, guiding his fingers to rest over her chest. Beneath his touch, a subtle glow pulsed, rhythmic and warm. "We see the essence of living things," she murmured. "Yours burns bright, Elias, uncommon among your kind." She drifted back to sleep, her fingers still loosely entwined with his. Elias remained beside her, listening to the storm rage outside while something equally powerful stirred within. Dawn broke with unexpected clarity, the storm having exhausted itself overnight. Elias stood on the outpost's small observation deck, scanning the surrounding forest for signs of pursuit. The monitoring drones he'd deployed reported no immediate threats, but the temporary reprieve brought little comfort. "Your world holds much beauty," Thara said from behind him. Elias turned to find her standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame for support. Her recovery speed was remarkable, the wound already showing signs of healing. "Not my world," he corrected. "I'm just passing through like all surveyors." "Yet you claim it with your markers and maps." There was no accusation in her tone, merely observation. Elias gestured for her to join him. "Corporate interests claim it, I just document what's already here." She moved beside him, her movements fluid despite her injury. The morning light caught in her silver hair, creating prismatic reflections. "What do you see when you look out there?" she asked. "Resources, biological compounds, potential colony sites." He paused, "and lately unexpected beauty." Thara studied him curiously. "You speak differently than you think. Is mind reading among your abilities too?" She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "No, but you forget our perception. Your heart light flickers when your words don't match your feelings." Embarrassed, Elias changed the subject. "How's your leg?" "Healing," she stretched it cautiously. "Your medicines are effective, though strange to my system." Inside the outpost, they found Kiv examining Elia's specimen collection with careful fascination. "Mama, look, the singing flowers." The boy pointed excitedly to a violet bloom suspended in preservation fluid. "Sonic oscillation," Elias explained. "The petals vibrate in response to certain light wavelengths." Thara touched the container gently. "We call them Korvathi dream weavers. Their song guides our meditation rituals." Throughout the morning, they exchanged knowledge, Thara identifying specimens Elias had catalogued, explaining their significance in her culture's pharmacology and spiritual practices. Elias was astounded by the depth of her understanding. "You mentioned you were a scholar," he said as they shared a midday meal. "What did you study?" "Cosmic harmony," she replied. When Elias looked confused, she elaborated. "The interconnection of living systems across celestial bodies, what you might call comparative xenobiology." "That's actually my specialty," Elias admitted, leaning forward with growing excitement. "I've documented ecological patterns across 17 planets in this sector alone." Their conversation flowed with increasing animation, professional curiosity evolving into mutual admiration. Kiv watched them with knowing eyes, occasionally interjecting with childlike insights that startled them both with their perception. As afternoon waned, Elias reluctantly turned to practical concerns, showing Thara the surveillance setup. "I've created a perimeter alert system, but we should prepare defensive measures." Thara nodded, her expression sobering. "The hunters use stun technology designed for our nervous systems. It paralyzes but keeps consciousness intact for harvesting." Elias fought down a surge of protective anger. "I'll calibrate the outpost's security protocols to detect their approach." While working together to fortify the station, their hands occasionally brushed, lingering slightly longer each time. The air between them seemed charged with unspoken awareness. "Your kind doesn't have heart lights," Thara observed quietly while they reconfigured the security panel. "Yet I feel yours nonetheless." Elias found himself closing the distance between them, drawn by something beyond scientific curiosity. "What does it tell you?" "That you are conflicted," she whispered. "Duty and desire pull you in different directions." Her golden eyes held his, neither looking away. Elias raised his hand slowly, hesitating before gently touching the side of her face. Her skin was smooth and warm, slightly luminescent under his fingertips. "And now," he asked, his voice rough. "Less conflicted," she murmured, leaning infinitesimally closer. The security alarm shattered the moment, a high-pitched warning that froze them both. "Approaching vehicle," Elias said sharply, pulling up the sensor display. 3 kilometers and closing." Thara called to Kiv, who darted to her side instantly. "How long?" "Minutes," Elias replied, grabbing his pulse rifle. "They've found us." He moved swiftly to the weapons locker, retrieving a second sidearm for Thara. "Ever used one of these?" She accepted it, her expression hardening with determination. "I'm a fast learner." Together they secured the outpost, positioning themselves at strategic points. As the hunter's craft grew closer, Elias found himself standing protectively near Thara and Kiv. "No matter what happens," he said quietly, "I won't let them take you." Thara's fingers intertwined with his, squeezing gently. "We face this together." Outside, engines whined as the hunter's vehicle descended through the canopy. The hunter's craft hovered 20 meters from the outpost, its matte black hull absorbing the afternoon light. Through his scope, Elias counted 4 humanoid figures inside, heavily armed and wearing environmental suits designed for maximum mobility. "They're preparing to disembark," he murmured to Thara, who crouched beside him at the reinforced window. She nodded, her face set in grim determination. "I recognize the insignia, Blackwater Extraction Syndicate. They supply the biotech black market across 3 systems." "Professional killers," Elias translated grimly, Kiv secured. "In the hidden compartment beneath your sleeping quarters." He knows to stay silent. The rear hatch of the hunter's craft opened, disgorging 3 figures. The 4th remained aboard, keeping the engines running, smart tactics for a quick extraction. Elias activated his communications array, broadcasting on an open emergency frequency. "Attention, approaching vessel. This is Elias Kendrick, Senior Planetary Surveyor with Galactic Terraforming Incorporated. You are trespassing on a protected research site." The hunters paused momentarily before continuing their approach, weapons raised. "They're not deterred by corporate authority," Thara observed. "No," Elias agreed, "but the transmission will be logged by satellite, establishing criminal intent." The lead hunter raised a scanner, sweeping it across the outpost. 2 lifeforms detected, 1 human, 1 Levidian. The mechanically filtered voice carried clearly through the humid air. "Surrender the alien female and you'll be unharmed, Surveyor." Elias keyed his exterior speaker. "I'm documenting indigenous culture under coalition protection protocols. Leave immediately." A harsh laugh erupted from the hunter. "Coalition jurisdiction is 6 months of travel from here. Your corporate regulations are meaningless." The hunters spread out, adopting a standard breach formation. Their practiced movements confirmed Elias' fears. These were experienced operators. "When they breach," he whispered to Thara, "trigger the interior defenses I showed you. Then we move to position B." Her golden eyes locked with his. "If we're separated." "We won't be," he promised. The first explosion rocked the eastern side of the outpost, a precision charge designed to breach the secondary entrance. Simultaneously, the hunters laid down covering fire on the main door. Elias and Thara executed their plan with fluid coordination. As the first hunter breached the entrance, Thara activated the interior defense system, a non-lethal sonic pulse that momentarily disoriented human neural patterns. Elias used the confusion to fire, catching the lead hunter in the shoulder with a stun round. They moved through the outpost's interior passages, engaging in a deadly game of hide-and-seek. The hunter's superior weaponry was balanced by Elias' intimate knowledge of the outpost layout and Thara's natural agility. "Two approaching from your left," Thara warned, her heightened senses detecting movement beyond Elias' perception. He pivoted, firing twice. A pained grunt confirmed at least 1 hit. The hunters regrouped, implementing thermal suppression to neutralize Elias' advantages. Acrid smoke filled the compartments, reducing visibility and hampering movement. "They're hurting us," Elias realized, driving us toward the main lab. Thara touched his arm, her expression urgent. "Let them." Understanding dawned in his eyes. The lab contained volatile research specimens, nothing lethal but certainly distracting. As they reached the lab, the hunters closed in from both corridors. Trapped between advancing forces, Elias and Thara exchanged a single look of confirmation before enacting their improvised plan. Elias slid across the floor, overturning the specimen case. Dozens of bioluminescent samples scattered across the deck plates, their containment pods rupturing on impact. Instantly, the room flooded with intense pulses of light, harmless to humans, but overwhelming to Thara's sensitive vision. She dropped to the floor, covering her eyes, seemingly incapacitated, a convincing performance that drew the hunters forward. "Target compromised," the lead hunter announced, advancing toward Thara's prone form. "Prep for crystal extraction." Elias felt cold fury surge through him as he witnessed their callous approach. Just as the hunter reached for Thara, she sprang into action, a blur of controlled violence. Her legs swept the hunter's feet while her hands disarmed him in one fluid motion. Simultaneously, Elias emerged from behind the overturned laboratory table, catching the second hunter mid-stride with a precision tackle. The confined space erupted into desperate close combat. Elias took a glancing blow to his ribs that left him gasping, but managed to render his opponent unconscious with a nerve strike learned during surveyor combat training. Thara moved with unexpected lethality, her wounded legs seemingly forgotten in the heat of battle. She subdued her opponent with precise strikes to neural pressure points unfamiliar to human physiology. The third hunter, witnessing the defeat of his companions, retreated toward the exit. Elias seized a restraint launcher from his equipment belt and fired. Electroconductive filaments wrapped around the fleeing figure, dropping him to the deck with a heavy thud. Silence fell over the outpost, broken only by their labored breathing. "Are you hurt?" Elias asked, moving swiftly to Thara's side. She shook her head, silver hair clinging to her sweat-dampened face. "My wound reopened, but it's manageable." Together, they secured the three unconscious hunters, using reinforced restraints designed for transporting dangerous wildlife specimens. The pilot, Thara suddenly remembered. They rushed to the observation window. The hunter's craft was already rising above the canopy, the fourth member having abandoned his companions. "He'll return with reinforcements," Elias said grimly. "Or warn the main operation," Thara added, her voice tight with concern. "My settlement, they'll accelerate their harvesting schedule." The implications hung heavily between them. Elias approached the lead hunter, now conscious but securely bound, and removed his helmet. "Where's your main base?" he demanded. The hunter, a weather-beaten man with implant scars visible along his jawline, merely smiled. "You're interfering with a very profitable business, surveyor. Walk away." Thara approached, her presence causing the hunter's expression to shift from disdain to unease. "Your organization has taken 17 of my people," she said quietly, "including my sister." "Specimens are processed off-world," the hunter replied flatly. "Forget them." Elias noticed something in the hunter's equipment belt, a locator beacon with coordinates. He retrieved it, studying the displayed information. 50 kilometers north, he announced. Underground facility according to these readings. Kiv emerged from his hiding place, rushing to embrace his mother. The hunter's eyes widened at the sight of the child. "Immature specimen," he muttered. "Crystal formation incomplete but viable, high market value." Elias struck the man with controlled force, silencing him. "Contact the main research base," he told Thara. "We need reinforcements." As night fell, they prepared for the journey ahead. The captured hunters were secured in a containment field, awaiting corporate security forces. Elias' transmission had reached the regional headquarters, triggering an emergency response protocol. In the quiet of the outpost's communication center, Thara found Elias studying topographical maps of the northern region. "You risk much," she said softly, "your career, possibly your life." Elias continued marking the map. "Some things matter more than corporate directives." Her fingers gently turned his face toward hers. "Why?" The question hung between them, laden with meaning beyond its simplicity. Elias searched for an answer that wouldn't sound trite or presumptuous. "Because I've spent my life cataloging life forms," he finally said, "but never truly connecting with them, until now." Her luminescent eyes searched his face before she leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his, an intimate gesture among her people. "Connection," she whispered, "yes." Dawn illuminated the forest canopy as the corporate security shuttle descended toward the outpost's landing pad. Elias stood watching its approach, acutely aware of Thara beside him, her shoulder occasionally brushing his arm. "Will they help?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "Director Vayan owes me," Elias replied. "I once saved her daughter from a Crescent swamp viper, and documented poaching operations hurt GTI's settlement applications." The shuttle touched down with a pneumatic hiss. Director Amara Vayan emerged, a tall woman with steel-gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. "Kendrick," she acknowledged with a curt nod. "Your transmission mentioned indigenous rights violations." Elias gestured toward the outpost where the restrained hunters were being loaded into the transport compartment by security personnel. "Black market bioharvesting. They're targeting the native Levidian population for crystalline formations with energy-conducting properties." Vayan's expression hardened. Coalition Senate explicitly outlawed such practices after the Proxima Centauri scandal. Thara stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate attention. "My people have suffered repeated raids. We believed all outsiders were complicit." The director studied Thara with undisguised curiosity before offering a formal bow. "On behalf of Galactic Terraforming Incorporated, I extend formal apologies for these criminal actions." Apologies don't rescue the captured, Thara replied evenly. No, Vayan agreed, but firepower might. She turned to her security chief. Prep the assault team full tactical package. Within an hour, the operation was underway. Satellite imaging had confirmed a concealed facility beneath a northern ridge, precisely where the hunter's beacon had indicated. Security drones provided real-time surveillance, revealing heavily armed guards and transport vessels. Standard extraction operation, Vayan explained, reviewing the tactical display. They process captured specimens on-site, then ship the harvested materials off-world through untraceable channels. Elias noticed Thara flinch at the clinical terminology. He placed his hand over hers, a silent gesture of support that didn't go unnoticed by the director. We'll approach from multiple vectors, Vayan continued. Primary objective is liberating any captives. Secondary is apprehending operation leadership. Thara straightened. I must participate. My knowledge of my people's physiology may be crucial for those injured during extraction procedures. Vayan hesitated, then nodded. Stay with Kendrick's team. As they prepared for deployment, Kiv approached his mother, his young face solemn. I should come too. Thara knelt before her son. You must remain here where it's safe. But how will Aunt Myra recognize you without me? He asked, revealing the real source of his concern. Thara touched her forehead to his. She will know me by my heart light as always. The assault was precisely executed. Corporate security forces breached the facility from 3 entry points simultaneously, overwhelming the surprised poachers with overwhelming force. Elias and Thara moved with the medical extraction team, following secure corridors cleared by the advance units. They found the detention area, a sterile white chamber containing translucent pods. Inside each, a Levidian lay suspended in preservation fluid medical interfaces attached to their chests. They're alive, the medical officer confirmed, checking monitors, but in stasis. The crystals are being artificially stimulated to grow faster than normal. Thara moved urgently from pod to pod, searching for familiar faces. Here, she called, my sister. Elias joined her beside a pod containing a female Levidian with facial markings similar to Thara's. Medical staff immediately began extraction procedures. In total, 23 Levidians were recovered, some recently captured, others who had been presumed lost for months. As the victims were carefully evacuated to the medical transport, Vayan approached Elias with grim satisfaction. Operation leaders apprehended, full documentation of their activities secured. The Coalition Senate will ensure maximum penalties. Elias nodded absently, his attention fixed on Thara as she helped tend to her awakening kinspeople. Kendrick, Vayan said more quietly, your report mentioned significant cultural exchange with the indigenous representative. He turned to face his superior. Is that a problem? It's unprecedented, she corrected, and potentially valuable. The coalition has authorized me to establish formal diplomatic relations with any sentient species encountered. Understanding dawned. You want Thara as an intermediary. I want someone who understands both sides, Vayan clarified, someone they trust. The implication hung between them. Elias watched as Thara reunited with her sister, their foreheads touching in their traditional greeting. I'll need time, he said finally. Vayan smiled knowingly. Take it. Your new assignment as diplomatic liaison begins whenever you're ready. Later, as the rescued Levidians recovered aboard the medical transport, Thara found Elias standing alone on the observation deck, watching the forest below. My people wish to thank you, she said, moving to stand beside him. I just did what was right. A rare quality among any species, She touched his arm. My settlement's council of elders has extended an invitation. They wish to meet the human who sees with his heart. Zelia's turned to face her fully. And what do you wish, Thara? The directness of his question seemed to surprise her. In the days of crisis, they had built something neither had anticipated, a connection that transcended their biological differences. I wish, she began, then paused, searching for the right words. I wish to explore what exists between us, this connection that defies conventional understanding. Elias took her hand, marveling at how natural it felt despite their anatomical differences. Xenobiologists would have a field day studying us. She laughed, a musical sound he had grown to cherish. Always the scientist. Not always, he murmured, drawing her closer. Sometimes just a man discovering something more valuable than any research finding. Their foreheads touched in the Levidian gesture of intimacy, but they added a human tradition as their lips met in a gentle kiss. Light bloomed between them, Thara's heart light responding to the contact, illuminating them both in its soft glow. On the horizon, the first settlement ships descended through the atmosphere, humanity's official arrival on Terravis IV. But unlike countless worlds before, this encounter would begin with understanding rather than conflict, with connection rather than exploitation. Kiv joined them, slipping his small hand into Elia's. Together they watched the ships land, three figures from different worlds standing united against the vast unknowns that lay ahead. New beginnings are always uncertain, Thyra observed. Elia squeezed her hand gently, but facing them together makes all the difference. In the forests below, the violet fronds swayed in patterns that seemed almost celebratory, as if the planet itself approved of this unexpected harmony between species once separated by the vast emptiness of space, now connected by something stronger than distance, more enduring than difference. The first diplomatic bridge between humans and Levidians would be built on something neither science nor policy had anticipated. Two hearts recognizing themselves in each other, across the stars.